Mychael and Jeff Danna are the composers from the Pixar fantasy family adventure film Onward. I'm at Noble of Gold Derby, here to ask these guys, in a film that is all about a quest for a Phoenix gem, what were you on the quest for? What were you trying to find in putting the music together for this film? Mychael, you can start.
Well, it's if we go back to the beginning and how we ended up on this film, it was certainly the most memorable of all my first film meetings. We didn't know anything about the film. We knew the director's name, and that was it. And we came into this meeting, and Dan Scanlon, the director, started telling us, okay, well, so let me tell you what this film is about. Well, it's about these two brothers, and their father dies when they're young, and they live in this world that's kind of a mashup between regular suburbia, modern day suburbia with high schools and fast food, and magical creatures that come right out of Tolkien. And right about then, both our jaws started dropping, just like, is this a joke? This sounds like, I mean, it was so close to our own kind of biography, our own story. Where we lost our father when we were teenagers, and as far as we're concerned, we grew up in this mashup of suburban fast food and high schools and this Tolkien-ish world. We both, at that time, Tolkien was something you read at least twice or three times in high school. The bands we listened to, I mean, I've got 70s records here, and this was the kind of art and the kind of stuff that we listened to. So we were, and we had friends who literally had airbrush vans with unicorns on them. So the whole world, it wasn't something we were aware of. It was something we kind of lived. And then the story of losing your father and having, your brother as your kind of the person that you live the rest of your life with. And then that quest to understand your father. And in their case, of course, they use magic to have this one final meeting with their father. So it was a really strange meeting. It was one of those things where you just feel like it's fate, in a way that's really exciting, but also a little bit frightening, because it was a story that was really important and personal to us. As a composer, you're often trying to find a way into the story and try and relate. This was almost too much the other way. It was like, this is stuff that we actually don't want to think about, that we successfully buried for decades, things that we never talk about between ourselves. And so I think we both knew at the beginning that it was going to be a lot of fun, that we were going to get to play with, stuff like this, where we get to like pull out all our old 70s chops, but also that we were going to have to pull out some really emotional moments of our lives, things that we hadn't really talked about and faced, and we were going to have to do this therapy kind of on a big stage with an orchestra and each other to kind of tell this story musically. I don't think I answered your question at all, but anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. So Jeff, in many ways, it was reality as much as fantasy for you guys.
Well, the autobiographical thread was undeniable and potent for us as we embarked on the writing of it. One of the things that also separated this film from many things we've done before was, Barley, the older brother in this story, has this van, like the van my brother was mentioning that we saw all the time when we were growing up. those spray painted airbrushed vans. And he has this music he plays in it. You know, he has these mixtapes with his inspirational music that plays in it. And so the first thing they said once they called us and said, you know, we're going to use you guys to do this, was they said, well, now we need some music that comes out of the van. And that was a lot of fun for us because that tapped right into those things Mike was referencing, the prog rock thing, the hard rock / fantasy rock thing that was all around us in the 70s where we grew up outside Toronto. So that was the first job we had. And that was, you know, I'm picking up my old guitar and we're doing like the Marshall amps, and the whole thing was a throwback. So right away we were in our early element, you know, as young guys scoring these young guys in the film. So right from the beginning, it was weirdly autobiographical.
I guess in thinking through that and how, as you said, Michael, there were sort of things that you had to sort of explore that maybe you had buried from your own sort of experience of losing your father at a young age, and your relationship as brothers. You're brothers, in case anyone doesn't know watching this. What was the scene to score that was maybe the most challenging on that level for each of you? It might be the same one for both. You might be different.
Well, it's exactly as you might expect. It's kind of, and look, it's a Pixar film, so you know you're going to get a lot of laughs. You're going to have clever, really high-end, clever dialogue and animation, but you also know you're going to get punched in the gut with emotion at the end, which is what happens in this film. And yeah, the kind of climactic scene where the brothers realize, and I won't say too much to spoil the movie in case people haven't seen it yet, but they realize that yes, they've lost their father and they've had this strong desire to know him and find him again and see him. But actually, through their journey of life, since he left that big hole in their lives, they've had each other. And so there is this kind of realization moment, and it's a Pixar movie, so it's going to be very emotional, and they really embrace it, embrace the moment. They set it up beautifully, and it's a very beautiful piece of filmmaking, and it's very strong. And yeah, that was the thing we were shying away from writing kind of all the way through the process, and then yeah, it was a tough one to write, and we kind of wrote it together. I think Jeff started it, and then I did some of it, and then it went back to him. It kind of went back and forth, and again, that's kind of like weirdly symbolic that's kind of what the scene is about, is that the brothers have each other, and you know, you have each other to help get through difficulty, and that's literally how we scored that scene. It was a tough one, and you know, Dan really wanted it to be a home run, and so we spent quite a bit of time and effort on it, and yeah, it was a tough one. And you know, we'd written the whole film up to that point, so we'd found our language, and the language, and Jeff can go into more detail, but the language, you know, was this great combination of styles and things that we'd done. But you know, at that moment, it was all about the emotion.
And Jeff, you might want to comment on that scene. What I thought was interesting was that that climactic scene, I don't want to spoil too much, is from the perspective of the younger brother, and it really is the music that is what the audience sort of hears. It really is the audience that is sort of comes center stage in some ways. So how did it feel for you putting together that sort of scene?
Well, yeah, you know, it kind of goes right through you like an arrow in one sense. You know, you start working on it in your kind of, you know, your approach to it, the layout of it, the logical part of you. In other words, well, we got this moment, and then he looks over the rock, and then music's going to have to do this, and you sort of lay out the structure of it the way, you know, you like the architecture of it. And then you go, okay, well, what are the themes? Well, we got the dad theme, so we're gonna, and then the brother. Okay, so we get, and then you have to actually like hammer and tongs and go and do the thing. And that was, yeah, that's, you know, that's powerful stuff. It's rare. This experience was rare for us. I mean, you're often tasked with being inside of people, but you don't usually see animated elfin versions of your life at various stages, which is really what this was for us. So yeah, you know, we lay the scene out, and then we have to tap into that thing in us and hope that what we do is going to reach everybody else when they see the film.
I think that's a really, sorry, but I think that's a really nice point, is that it is a very specific story about a very specific kind of loss, and but it's a universal thing that every human being has experienced a loss. Everyone's had loss in their life. They've had tragedy, and so from this specific thing, you can reach everyone's feelings, so you can understand. Yeah, maybe they haven't lost their father in a circumstance like this, but it's something that is very impactful, I think, for anybody, and that's something, that kind of universality out of the specific situation is something that I think Pixar is really good at, and that's something that music can really help to make work.
And Jeff, like Michael mentioned this earlier, the language of the music of this film, and you do bring so many different elements together. There's folk elements, there's orchestral elements, and there's rock elements, and probably other ones that I didn't pick up on. What was it like weaving those different music styles and elements together?
It was a lot of fun, and it's something that we try and do anyways. We often try and mix the orchestra with something that's a little bit different, just to have some fun with it and to help give any film we're working on its own world, because you know, that's one of the ways you can do about it, is to find an interesting musical palette for it. You know, we started with Ian, and Ian has the greatest character arc in the film. And Ian goes from small and you know, sort of the small character. He's uncertain, he's unsure of himself, he's going to school, he hates it. And of course, by the end, he's heroic and large. And so we could track that with both with the size of our score and the instrumentation of it. So, you know, we dug into the bag of folky guitars and such. I've got a collection of those things. I'm the guitar player of the two of us. And that seemed to really work for him at high school, which was really his starting point. And so we came up with the tune for him and the instrumentation for him. We had things like bouzouki and quattro, sauterne, bandurria. There's all these neat things I've collected from all over the place to give it a folky, guitarish sound, but not too, you know, up the middle. And then as we went, we built in some of the other kind of fantasy folk instruments with the score. We used a gamba, we used a crumb horn for a couple of things. There's a lot of psaltery in it. And then as we got through the film, we added more and more sizable orchestra to those elements, till at the end it's a very large sound. The scene we just described has some of those folk elements in it, but it's also a 100-piece orchestra. And the movie really just laid that out for us. It just made perfect sense to combine fantasy and, you know, orchestra and folk instruments in a way that started small and ended up very dynamic at the end.
Yeah, and choir too.
Right.
We had them sing for words. We had them sing the elf spells, the magic spells that Barley and Ian used in the film. That was fun. And then of course there's the rock element as well. So we pretty much hit everything in this movie.
I think another thing is we're an awards website, and Pixar is a studio that's done incredibly well at the Academy Awards. I think since the Academy Award feature category has come into play at the Oscars, Pixar has been the most successful studio in that category with nominations and wins. But aside from awards, also just critical reception, box office, Pixar is probably been the gold standard of the past 20 years in filmmaking and establishing a canon as a studio. How do you guys, coming into Pixar, and this is your second Pixar film you've worked on composing, how much are you influenced by the other Pixar films and the music in the other Pixar films, and how much does that inform you when you're coming up with a score for a Pixar film?
Well, it doesn't directly influence you because, of course, you have to find the sound of that story. You have to tell that story with your music, but as you say, you know that you're at the top of the game. This is the big leagues. These are the people that have made films, that are, as you say, some of the best films of the last generation. And so, yeah, you work very hard to feel that you deserve to be there and honor that incredible legacy. The working environment there is one of the things that have made them so successful. It's a very open door policy. When you write sketches, when we would fly up there and bring music, you get opinions from a lot of people, and it really does help make things better because you get ideas. Oh yeah, that's something interesting. And so that you have this, but it's a very supportive kind of critique, and it's something that makes the music better. It makes it stronger by having kind of all this examination in, like I say, the most kind of positive, affirming and supportive way, not a breaking down way, but an additive way. So the whole kind of zeitgeist up there is really something special, and you can see directly that that's why they've made such excellent work. And yeah, it's something that we really lifted our game, and we, as high as it could go. And we knew also that you have the support, you have the budget. We can have a choir in London. We can have a full symphony orchestra here at Warner Brothers. We can get all these different folk players and great guitarists and drummers and all these things. So you're being supported, and that there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. It's a shame that the movie came out kind of like the first week of the pandemic, and that really was a little heartbreaking. I don't think it got the eyes and the attention that it over time that it's going to settle in, I think, as a really fine Pixar film. And I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's a shame that it's been such a weird and shaky year, not just for our film, but for lots of films. And but I feel very confident that this is a great film, and it's something we're super proud of and honored and grateful. And we appreciate the therapy session that it was for us as brothers.
Yeah, Jeff, do you want to comment on that?
On the therapy part of it?
On any part of it, was it like the score?
No, I mean, Michael's right. The Pixar is just a magical place, and there's nothing really more fun for composers than when the box around the thing you're doing is so vast, which animation does immediately, because there's just so much room to be adventurous. I mean, the whole world is created in an animated film, so immediately you're not being hemmed in the way you would normally be, say, if a sitcom or a romantic comedy or something. And then on top of that, it's a Pixar animated film, so it's amazing and visually superlative. It's really the best it can get for us. And yeah, we had a great time with it. They're great people with doing great work, and they make it as easy as it can be, and it's never easy, but it's a lot of fun with them.
Just quickly, which one of you, as brothers, which one of you is the Ian, and which one of you is the Barley?
Well, Mike's older, so
yeah,
he's the Barley.
And you're the Ian.
I would make me the Ian, and in some ways there was a lot of things about their characters that were true. Mike was never like a big rugged, rough, tough.
I mean, I am now.
Yeah, he's gigantic and can kill both of us with one arm. But at the time, he wasn't throwing, the dog around the kitchen all that much.
Yeah.
but you know, so there were definitely some parallels in that, and you know, so that would make me Ian, which is, you know, good, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
There's certain birth order characteristics. There's no question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think their characters were kind of different from ours, but the birth order part of it and the way they see each other, I think, is the thing that's the most like Jeff and I.
And just to quickly finish the interview, guys, I'm just wondering, through this process, you've talked about it like it was therapy with an orchestra. What did you learn about yourselves and each other from making the film? Very quickly, just like summarize, what's your big learning? What did you take away?
It was kind of like a reminder of things that you know and then don't think about very much, or you knew and didn't really pay any attention to. I would think of it that way. So what Mike said about the fact that it's the two of you and you're there forever, in, so to speak, in life. That's a good reminder to have, like something you know and you understand, but then you see it and you go, yeah, it's us, you know. So there were some great moments like that.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that's the positive message. I think you tend to naturally be overwhelmed by the tragedy of a loss, and that kind of makes you just put the whole thing aside and not want to think about it. But this film really did make me look at the positive part of it, which is, yeah, the fact that, look, I mean, my brother and I have been working together, and we're working on a Pixar movie together. I mean, that's like, that pretty much tells you, you know, how things turned out. So it's been a positive. We've made something really good out of something tragic for us.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for spending the time with us today to talk about Onward. All the best of luck for the upcoming Academy Award nominations and other award nominations that are coming out down the pipeline, something you've got a bit of experience with, Michael, as an Oscar winner for Life of Pi. And people watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your own awards predictions. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.